The NBA playoffs are officially here, and with the bracket now locked in, fans are in for what could be a wild and unpredictable 2 months of basketball. One matchup that stands out right away is the Los Angeles Lakers versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Not only because of the big names on both sides, but because it's a clash of completely opposite styles. On one side, you've got the Lakers, a team that's undersized, sure, but packed with elite offensive firepower and arguably the best group of playmakers in the league. Luka, LeBron, and a supporting cast that can break you down with spacing, passing, and high IQ basketball. On the other side, it's the Timberwolves, long, physical, defensively locked in, and loaded with rim protectors. They might not have the best decision-makers or passers, but their size and athleticism allow them to dominate matchups, especially inside. This series has all the makings of a chess match, because both teams bring totally different weapons to the table. But here's what makes it especially interesting. We haven't really seen these two specific rosters go head-to-head. Yes, the Lakers and Wolves played 4 times during the regular season, but only one of those games came after the big trade that brought Luka to LA, and even that game wasn't telling. The Wolves were missing both Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert. So from a scouting standpoint, it's hard to say exactly how either team is going to approach this matchup. But there are still key clues in those games, little details, schematic decisions, that might give us a preview of what's to come. For example, in their last meeting, the Timberwolves opened the game with Jaden McDaniels guarding Jackson Hayes. Now, that may sound unimportant, but it's actually a very smart move. Think back to last year's finals when Boston put Jason Tatum on Daniel Gafford, then started switching every ball screen. It completely shut down Dallas lob threats. In that series, Gafford and Lively barely combined for 6 alley-oops. But in the Western Conference Finals against Minnesota, the Mavs torched the Wolves because Gobert stayed back and didn't switch. That allowed those bigs to combine for 14 alley-oops, almost 3 per game. So maybe Minnesota is trying to pull from Boston's playbook. By putting McDaniels on Hayes and switching ball screens, they can take away the lob threat and force ball handlers like Luka or LeBron to beat McDaniels one-on-one. Not an easy task. But that brings up a whole new challenge. What do you do with Gobert? If the Lakers go with someone like Rui Hachimura or Dorian Finney-Smith at the 4, both guys can stretch the floor and hit threes. That forces Gobert to either stay home and give up open shots, or rotate out and risk leaving the paint unprotected, which is his comfort zone. And that, right there, is what makes this series so exciting. Every decision comes with a trade-off. If the Wolves start with McDaniels on Hayes and Gobert on a floor spacer, the Lakers will need to make adjustments, and they've got plenty of options. One key move could be using whoever Rudy Gobert is guarding as the screener in the pick and roll. That would force Rudy into the primary action, where he's no longer a help-side shot blocker, he's part of the play. Now, Gobert's natural instinct is to drop, sit back, cover the paint, and protect against the roll. But that style got him absolutely torched in last year's conference finals. Luka ran 2-on-1 actions against him non-stop, forcing Gobert to either step up on the ball or stay with the roller. Neither worked. This year, though, things might be different. If the Lakers don't have a true lob threat in the play, Rudy can step up a little more and shrink that in-between space, limiting Luka's ability to read and react. That said, there are still 2 ways the Lakers can punish that drop coverage. Luka's pull-up 3, if he's hot from deep, it doesn't matter how you guard him. That jumper can blow any scheme wide open. Pick-and-pop shooters. If Gobert is focused on the ball and the screener pops out instead of rolling, guys like Rui or DFS can capitalize on that extra space and hit open looks. But this is where it gets tricky. Because Jackson Hayes isn't a floor spacer, Minnesota can counter by pre-switching, putting a more mobile defender on the screener before the action even starts, or letting Rudy step out, knowing McDaniels is still protecting the rim behind him. That's a luxury few teams have. To deal with that, the Lakers might go small. They could remove the non-shooting big entirely and run lineups with Rui and DFS in the corners, full 5-out spacing. That puts enormous pressure on the Wolves. Suddenly, you've got Luka or LeBron driving with no big in the paint, and multiple shooters ready to punish help defenders. If that happens, the Wolves may be forced to fall back into more traditional matchups, like putting Jaden McDaniels directly on Luka. That's still a great one-on-one matchup, but the spacing becomes the real problem. With shooters at every position and 2 of the smartest playmakers in the league, the Lakers can stretch the defense until it breaks. And here's the kicker, if the Lakers are hitting their open shots, the Wolves have to scramble on every rotation, and that's where LA thrives, not just on ball screens, but on exploiting slow closeouts and broken coverage. That's why this series could become a nightmare for both coaching staffs. Every adjustment has a counter. Every defensive gamble opens up something else. And we haven't even talked about the Wolves' biggest defensive liability yet, but that's coming in the next section. So far, we've talked about spacing, switches, and pick-and-roll tactics, but now it's time to focus on one of the biggest X-factors in this entire series, Mike Conley. Let's be honest, Conley's been a solid veteran presence for the Timberwolves, especially as a passer and floor general. But in a matchup like this, he's a glaring target. In their last meeting, the Lakers hunted him on nearly every possession. Whether it was Luka or LeBron, it didn't matter. They saw the size mismatch and went to work. Here's the problem for Minnesota. Conley just doesn't have the size or strength to guard elite creators like Luka or LeBron. And unlike last year's Celtics, who had switchable defenders everywhere, the Wolves can't hide him easily. If the Lakers force a switch and get Conley on the ball, Luka or LeBron don't even need to drive. They can post him up, back him down, and collapse the defense. Now Minnesota's in scramble mode, again. Help has to come, rotations have to fly, and that creates easy kickouts for wide-open shooters. If Gobert or Randle can't rotate quickly enough, LA is going to pile up points. So what are the Wolves' options? Well, they've got a few. Sub in Dante DiVincenzo for more size and defense. Go with Nickeil Alexander-Walker for lockdown perimeter coverage. Both of those guys can help limit the damage on defense, but now you're giving up something on offense. Conley is still one of their best decision-makers and most reliable passers. Losing him for long stretches could seriously disrupt Minnesota's flow, especially in crunch time. And while Minnesota is facing lineup dilemmas, the Lakers are sitting comfortably on a well-established defensive system. Since Luka arrived, their game plan has been consistent. Switch most actions to always keep a body in front. Force the ball baseline to take away the middle. Load up with help from the weak side early. This strategy is designed to limit dribble penetration and deny easy paint touches. And it works because the Lakers rotate faster than almost any team in the league. Their help defense isn't just about effort, it's about timing, chemistry, and anticipation. But even with that structure, the Lakers aren't invincible. The Wolves have a couple of quiet advantages that could swing games, especially on the offensive glass. With all that aggressive defense and switching from LA, there's often one or two defenders out of position to box out. Minnesota's size can dominate the boards and rack up second chance points, something they've already shown they're capable of doing. And then there's the Anthony Edwards factor. Let's talk about the Wolves' biggest weapon, Anthony Edwards. This guy has taken a massive leap, and heading into this series, he's one of the most dangerous pull-up shooters in the NBA. That's not an exaggeration. If Edwards can get up 9 or 10 threes per game and hit them at around 40%, it puts insane pressure on the Lakers' defense, no matter how well they rotate or help. Because when a guy can create space and rise up from deep like that, you can't really scheme him out. The only option is to trap him and get the ball out of his hands. But here's where things get even more interesting. As the season's gone on, Edwards has gotten a lot better at passing out of traps. If the Lakers send extra help, he's capable of hitting the open man, and if that leads to a 4-on-3 advantage with a guy like Randle attacking a soft paint, that could be a serious problem for LA, especially since they don't have a true shot-blocking big when Hayes is off the floor. And let's not forget, Minnesota has roster flexibility. If their defense isn't holding up, they can flip the switch and go fully offensive, throw out a lineup with 5 legit shooters and try to outscore the Lakers. And honestly, it could work. The Lakers' defense is designed to overplay the ball and help off of non-shooters. But if everyone on the floor is shooting 40% from deep, that strategy starts to fall apart fast. This is why I think the series could become a shootout. Minnesota may not be able to stop LA consistently, but they can definitely keep up, especially if their shooters get hot and control the glass. And there's one more wild card, zone defense. The Lakers have experimented with a 3-2 zone, especially when they're trying to shake things up. And if there's one clear weakness in Minnesota's offense, it's their decision-making under pressure. In a recent fourth-quarter collapse against Milwaukee, the Wolves looked completely lost against a 2-3 zone, making poor reads, slow passes, and wasting possessions. If LA pulls out that zone in key stretches, it might swing close games in their favor. So, what does all this mean? Well, honestly, this series could go a lot of ways. Minnesota has real advantages, size, shooting, and depth. And the Lakers have the experience, the stars, and a tactical edge. But when it comes down to crunch time execution, that's where I think LA takes over. It's easy to forget, but in last year's conference finals, the Wolves were tied or leading after 3 quarters in every game, and still lost the series in 5.
Why?
Because the Mavs just out-executed them down the stretch. I wouldn't be surprised if the exact same thing happens again. The Wolves control the early game, win the possession battle, and hit their shots, only to fall apart in the fourth quarter due to turnovers, poor passing, and tough shot selection. Meanwhile, the Lakers have 2 of the smartest closers in basketball, Luka and LeBron, who know exactly how to finish games.